All right, so here we are, another episode of Straight Up. With us is Nate Burrows. Nate is a traveling comedian from Chicago who has performed at places such as the Laugh Factory and G-Man Tavern. Neil and myself had the pleasure of seeing him the other week perform. Real funny guy. Nate, what's happening?
Hey, guys, how we doing? Great intro. G-Man Tavern, Laugh Factory. All right. My also huge. Can I say that? No, sorry.
Totally. We'll just edit that out.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, man. Yeah, what's up, guys? How we doing?
Good, man. As
yeah.
a comedian, that is a very unique type of career
it's
path to choose.
definitely not something that your parents are pushing you towards.
I was gonna say
definitely not something where. My parents are totally cool with it. Not to stray away from your question. The reason I got into stand-up comedy was because it always just kind of felt right. Like everything else, I've always just kind of lived my life just making jokes and being a goof and just being loud.
That's true.
Yeah,
it's
very animated. So it was just fun. Just kind of fell into the right place, man.
Okay.
You know,
Was there a seminal moment of you're this is the path that I'm going to choose? When you were in college, did you major in comedy or what?
No.
How did that end up progressing?
When I was in college, I did I was trying to figure out my major, and it was supposed to go into business. And I saw the business kids, and I'm like, I'm not a business kid. I hate wearing blazers.
Yeah.
I didn't on a briefcase.
Yeah.
Kids brought briefcases to classes. It was so weird.
It just wasn't your thing.
I wore hoodies.
What college did you go to?
DePaul.
DePaul.
But I was I don't like, and I was thinking about dropping out. My mom kind of gave the mom speech of they're got the financial aid, and you need to go to college kind of thing. Just being a mom, which is totally understandable. I'd say the same thing to my kid. But there was an open mic at DePaul, and I had 3 or 4 of my friends who, after smoking a joint, were like, "Dude, you should do that. It'd be so fun." Yeah. So I wrote some material, which is some of the worst material. It's just shit that when I think about now. I wore a neon green shirt, and I had a Detroit Tigers hat that was cocked, and it was a music comedy open mic, and I followed a kid who was covering John Mayer. It was this kid who was doing an acoustic John Mayer track. It was the most acoustic John Mayer you could ever do, and it was and then he did a song of his own.
Do you know John Mayer?
Yes,
I do know who John Mayer is.
So we have one of our co-hosts is black. We just want to confirm.
I am familiar with John Mayer. For those who don't know,
John Mayer, you're wearing J. Cruz.
Yes, I know who John Mayer is.
Jesus Christ!
All right,
it's ass deal. But yeah, no, and then he did an original. He goes, "This one's an original," and he did it about his girlfriend at the time, and it was just my heart took the train to the station of her love or something, and then I followed, and then it was all right, well that was whatever that guy was, and all right, well Nate Burrows is gonna tell some jokes, and I went up, and I did pretty awful. The first 3 jokes were bad, besides my friends laughing in the back, and they were just laughing at how bad it was going. And then I did one joke that got a laugh, and it felt so good. It was the best feeling, and it still is the best feeling to this day. Got a laugh, people actually laughed, and it was the greatest feeling ever. And I was like, well, this is greater than anything else I've ever experienced. This is what I want. I'll do this for free, regardless. I'll pay to have this feeling. It felt awesome. Yeah,
you pay to have this.
Is that?
I mean, that's pretty tight.
It
so
was yeah,
Okay.
it's a drug.
Okay.
It's a drug.
So you've
total
been
drug.
doing the comedy thing for what, a few years now?
I've been doing it for 4 years now.
Okay, 4 years. So tell us about some of your comedic influences. Like, who did you watch growing up? Who do you study, and why?
Well, I listened to Bill Cosby before he was roofing people.
It's like
Every day as a kid, though, I used to listen to Bill Cosby. Like, I used to have trouble going to sleep, and I tried night lights and I tried music, and nothing really worked. But for some reason, my dad would play Bill Cosby because he had a bunch of Bill Cosby CDs, and for some reason, Bill Cosby, I know all of his albums like from front to back.
Okay.
Himself.
I know,
is-
and then he
is
just started
without a
roofing
doubt.
people,
It's
and
like,
I can't throw out that fun
why?
fact.
I still love him. I
Yeah,
still think he's
No,
great.
I think
He's yeah,
like,
He's
I've
so
never
funny.
laughed so hard over Bill
Yeah.
Cosby's albums
Yeah.
in my there's never been something that's been as funny as that. And
I
it's
know.
a shame that it's like
And
the
then he
personal
started giving-
circumstances.
Then he started
like,
doing the dibble dabble and the drinks, and now I can't
Yeah.
like him anymore. So it sucks. I had.
are you as a comedian? Are you like forced to disown him as one of your own?
You know, it's weird. I don't know. I guess I just don't tell people that when people are like, "Hey, like, who did you
Yeah.
used to listen to when you were younger?"
Yeah.
I just don't tell. I'm like Bill Cosby, but I say it with like this face now
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of being like,
Like,
Cosby.
Yeah.
the punchline.
Yeah.
Instead of being
Yeah.
proud about it, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like,
It's more just like
Yeah, no, but,
waiting
like,
for the laugh track.
I used to listen to him all the time, and then in high school, I saw Chappelle, and hands down, Dave Chappelle, to this day, like, what is my favorite comedian.
You
of
saw
all
him
time.
live, Nate, or you saw him on the show?
I saw him on I saw him on TV.
Okay.
I was with friends, and they were like, "Dude, you ever seen this?" Like, it was right when I started watching stand-up comedy, and Dave Chappelle. It was, I believe it was his "Killing Him Softly" album when he did it in San Francisco. But just hands down, when I saw that, I was
Yeah.
like, "This is the greatest thing." And then I saw Half Baked, and like I saw him in all those movies. And
Yeah.
shit. But but Chappelle,
Yeah.
it's you to just meet certain people. Like with him as a comedian, is he can say anything about anything. Like he can talk about any subject, and the way he says stuff, whether it's his diction in his voice or just how his perception on stuff, it's so funny. But it's also just it's just insightful. He has a very unique point of view. Do you remember when that Donald Sterling thing happened?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
and he had a joke about that when he goes something just came up that shocked the world. This rich white billionaire apparently has racial tendencies, and then he's like because he talks about he freaked out going, "Stop bringing these black players to my games," and he was talking about Magic Johnson. The first thing I would say if it was my girlfriend. It was so this is how
God.
he does that.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I mean that brings up an interesting question. Like, as a comedian, are you confined to certain topics as a white straight male
No, never.
from Glen Ellen? Like, are there certain things that are off limits for
One of
you
the
to talk
greatest
about?
white straight male comedians from Glen Ellen, Nate
Burrows.
No, man, there is like kind of like a lot of shows. There's like the comedy scene's dominated by straight white males. You really just like it's all just in your head.
Yeah.
Things that you see and you start laughing at. Whether it's like my girlfriend has a fat dog that has a really tiny head, and I think that's hilarious, and I can convey that. And when you get other people to laugh at what you're thinking is funny, that's what's awesome about it.
They say there's like this I think like this book or like study or whatever, and it's called like the humor code. Are you familiar with that, Nate?
No, I don't know.
So pretty much it talks about like it studies the science behind humor, and it's actually pretty intriguing.
Science?
Like, it's crazy. There are guys who literally study that science, and they say like,
Is it like a
Who are
degree?
these-
So
is it
basically-
like something
who
you
are
can
these
get?
nerds?
So basically,
who are these?
Who are these Rick Storcells?
So they say pretty much like if you like there's a formula, like if you say something that's different, that's out of the ordinary, it isn't harmful and it isn't offensive, then you can get a laugh out of it.
Well, okay, and so there's the whole shock value of words, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
and that is abused so much. There's all these people that come up that want to be the next Richard Pryor or Lenny Bruce or guys, and they'll come up and be like, jerking off, and they'll say stuff like that. And they'll say these words
Yeah.
that have no depth or weight to them. They'll just say them because they think like if I'm saying them, I'm alternative or I'm being real edgy.
Yeah.
But no, they're just being hateful or
Yeah.
they're just being they just look like a dick.
Yeah.
You know, if you actually if you can make something, if you can come up with something that's unique that actually has a purpose to that with those words, then then it's great. But if you're just coming up and you just want to say those words because of their shock value and you just think it looks cool, then
And that kind of
that's
goes
stupid.
into the thing I mentioned earlier. Like, they're offensive, you know? Like, when you talk about your girlfriend having a big dog, a fat dog with a small head, like, that's pretty funny because how often do we see that happen?
And he's got tiny legs.
And people love dogs and it doesn't offend them.
Oh, well, but like people are gonna say, like, people are gonna be offended by anything.
Regardless?
Yeah. Regardless, people
Yeah.
are going to be offended because that's what blogs are for. That's what Yelp. Look at Yelp. Yelp is just people live off of being offended. That's what people's hobbies are sometimes.
Got you.
Do you have any trolls?
Oh,
With all
man.
you?
Yeah, I was just in Cleveland. This guy did the worst. It was the worst joke. He was bombing. He was doing so bad. And he goes, all right. He goes, I'm going to have to go to, like, my good stuff, you know, which is something you never should say on stage. You never tell people.
But I would have laughed at that person.
You remember that.
Yeah,
You remember that,
I would have
Neil.
laughed. I'd be like, hee, that was... I would have been the only person laughing, perhaps, but I thought that was funny.
He goes after he does 5 minutes when no one's laughing at anything, and it's like a good crowd. There's like 30, 40 people in this like small little bar, and he's doing really bad. And then he goes, all right, I'm gonna go to my good stuff. He goes, any ladies out there have a big?
Did they laugh?
No, I laughed.
Okay.
The comics laughed at how bad it was.
Yeah.
And he's just, and then it's no one laughing. He's standing there. What? Oh, no one's got a big. And then
I would have been laughing. Oh, my goodness.
so he goes, well, I'm just saying because my girlfriend's so big. We went to the beach. And when we came back, seashells fell out of it. And then he did this. Like, you get it?
Yeah.
He did which is the worst pose, the you get it pose.
Yeah.
That was so 1970s. Is that?
Crazy.
Like he was waiting for a rim shot. You know, like I didn't.
Yeah.
God, I've never seen someone so bad in my entire life. If he watches this and is offended, he should be. That was the worst joke.
Do you want to give his name? Do you want to give him a little free PR?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
So
He offered a show to me in Cleveland that I might do. So I might be ruining my chance. I really like talking about that because some comics or some people who want to do comedy will use these shock words, these shock topics, because they think that's what will make them. But some people will naturally, the comics who are good that will use these shock topics or shock words, will use them in a bit that doesn't, they're not forcefully trying to use these words. It just naturally comes within the bit, you know? I don't want to throw like other comics bits out there because I don't know if they want to, but like there's people that will actually do it right. And then when they do it, it's beautiful because they're actually making a point and it's within the context of like I don't know, have you ever seen Lenny Bruce? He talks about like why we can't use certain words, and it's the power of the word that is like you're focusing on the power of the word. You're letting words have power to them when they're really just words.
My mom's a really big fan of Seinfeld. I love Seinfeld too, but my mom particularly likes Seinfeld because all of his content is so rich and it's so funny, but he doesn't use words like f***, pussy, or ass.
Yeah.
He just, the content of the joke and the substance is enough to sell it.
And every comic is different, and every comic will use, like some comics will have a clean, though there's like the clean comic, or there's comics that will do an act that doesn't involve swears, and there's some comics that will have swears, and I don't think they personally are choosing, they're like, I'm gonna swear in this bit. I think that just them personally, the way they grew up or just the lifestyle they have, that's how they feel, that's what best represents them. That is their act. Like you see Chris Rock, see a guy like Chris Rock, he even talks about it. He doesn't purposely, he's not like, I don't go through my act and go, I'm going to say right here or something like that. He goes, this is just what comes to me in my head. This is how I've always been. When I'm being funny or if I'm expressing myself, this is the way I do it. But because the person who's using that forcefully, that guy's not going to be successful. The guy who's trying to say these words that are offensive, that guy's not going to be the guy who's successful in what he's doing because he's trying to gain success by exploiting these shock words and not using them in his own natural, honest way.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
Kind of to me, that's just like I did this bit about like I was looking at myself in the mirror and I had my glasses off and it was when my hair was really long, but I was like, when my glasses are on, I look like an accountant Jew. But when I take them off, I just look like a pyramid building Jew. And I was looking at myself in the mirror and I was like pretending to, and I was like, because there are two kind of Jews. There's the accountant Jew and the pyramid. And I was like, I'm the strong, and I was like, and so like stuff like that, like it could be anything like that, and that could be, well, yeah, and it's some people like, some people don't. It doesn't. Either way, that's just funny to me. So like, I'm gonna do that regardless if people like it or not, because in my head I'm cracking up because I remember looking at myself in the mirror with the pyramid building Jew face, and I think that's so funny. And if it bombs, it's like I still feel that joke that usually is fun, and even if the crowd doesn't really like it, I still just laugh at it. So it's kind of it's like I don't, I like it.
Have you ever like bombed?
The worst bomb I ever probably. Oh man! So the worst bomb I ever was like a year in when I was doing stand up, and I did a benefit show. Now benefit shows are never good. They're always the fundraiser benefit shows, because the reason they're so bad is because no one goes there for comedy. The people there are there for like a fundraiser or benefit. They don't know that there's going to be a comic on. So it was at Subterranean in Chicago, and it was like the saddest cause.
Yeah.
Subterranean can fit 100 people. There's a stage in the front, and then there's a bar in the back, and there was 10 people there, and they were all in the back. And it was the saddest cause. It was like single pregnant teen moms who had like cancer. It was
also
like
cancer and also a recovering addict.
Yeah, it was literally 4 different hardships wrapped into one. And they go, hey, can you do 15 minutes? I only had 5 minutes, but I was like, yeah, I have 15 minutes. And I go, and there's only 10 people there, and it's a 100-seat room. And this lady goes, hey, you're Nate, you're the comic. And I go, yeah, then she goes, thanks for having me. She goes, here's a drink ticket. So I immediately drank a beer because I'm like, oh, this is looking really weird. You gotta get drunk, calm the nerves. And anyway, she goes up and she goes, thank you guys for coming out. The 10 people turned, all turned to look at her, and she goes, thank you guys for coming out. Just so you know, all the money. Well, she apologized for being. I know it's light. There's gonna be more people coming. Thank you guys so much for coming out. All the money you give goes to these single teen pregnant cancer moms that, all the money you give goes to them being able to afford diapers. Some of these moms can't afford food for themselves, or they're starving children. So thank you so much for coming out. And then she walks away from the mic, goes up to me, and she goes, you can just go on whenever. And I'm like, what? You're not going to introduce, like, you're not going to be like, hey, comics coming out? She goes, no, just go up and, just go up. And so I went up and I said, hey, I'm the comedian. I'm gonna tell some jokes. I was a year in. I had no, and I was like, she said some really sad stuff. I'm gonna say some happy. Some happy. They're all looking at me like, what?
Cancer? What's up with that, right?
Well, I had no idea, and for 10 minutes, I think I blacked out for like 5 minutes of it, and it was bad to the point where after like a drunk dad came up to me and started giving me like pointers on my act. I'm like, you could have said this right here instead of this, and I was like, oh my god. That was.
Where's the other beer?
Yeah, no, I got out of there. That, and I did a show in Indiana called Godfathers, and it was a mafia-themed bar where the servers all had plastic Tommy guns, and they dressed up like Al Capone, and they were all miserable because it was a bad bar. And it was like 6 people in the front, 6 people over 60 years old in the front. And that was the worst show I've ever, the guy did I got a don't quit your day job, like from this old man who had to cut up his short ribs like extra tiny so he could eat them.
He didn't throw it at you, did he?
Oh my God. No, that's never like that.
I don't care what you say.
There's been shows, but that's a whole nother thing. But no, bombing is the thing that you kind of accept.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it first starts happening, when you first get into it, it's like anything. When it first happens, you're like, oh, my life is over when like these people all hated me.
Would you say when you're bombing, or if let's say there's 5 or 10 comedians and a few of them are bombing, would you say it's more on the lines of like them not being on their game, or it's like for whatever reason the audience as a whole is just not understanding what anyone's trying to say?
Sometimes it could be a mixture of both. Sometimes the audience just isn't laughers. There's people that if they like something, they'll just go, but they won't laugh, and you're like, give me the ha-has. That's my validation that it works. This is the agreement we had, you know?
So how much time do you spend, like, preparing material for yourself?
No, man. I guess it just depends on, you know, it's like what you said when you're a writer. You get inspired. You take certain thoughts, and then you kind of translate them into a bit. Like, recently, I had an idea of, like, there's... Like, it was like a really dark thought, but I was like, there's people in the world that still die of thirst, and I've masturbated while showering. Like, I had that thought, like, a week before that, and I was like, oh, that's fun. How can I... But it's also kind of sick, because it's true, but it's, like, really f***ed up. But I was like, oh, yeah, I can make this into something. And so then I'll do that, and I'll go to Mike's, and I'll say that thought. I'll say that, and if that gets a laugh, I'll try to expand it. How much can I expand on? So then I'll do like yeah, like I'll be like, there's a kid in Sudan who's like, water, please, but I'm under the shower like, and I act like an evil villain. I'll be like, I'll do an evil villain laugh while I'll pretend to be jerking off in the shower. Stuff like that. Can we have that in the?
Yeah, you can have whatever.
We are totally
I can
including
pretend
that.
like I'm jerking off. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Sorry, Coach Xander.
Shout out to Albie Xander. Thank you for the concussion interview. It was awesome.
Twitter handle. Do you have something to follow
Nate Burrows 2. That's my Twitter handle.
Why 2?
I don't know. There's a Nate Burrows.
Is that a
one.
thumb?
Yeah, Nate. I recently followed you. I'm
Nate
expecting to
Burrows
follow
1
back.
Nate Burrows 1 is hilarious, by the way.
So Nate Burrows,
We all love Larry.
follow him on Twitter at Nate Burrows 2. Catch him out on Facebook. Nate Burrows. He already posts his shows.
Yes,
Where are your next performances taking place?
I do
Yeah.
a
Where
show.
can
I do
people
a show
follow
every.
you?
I do a show every Thursday on Wrigleyville called This Week's Show. Wrigleyville is a nightmare, but the show is great. Monday, I'm doing a comedy evening. It's a show that I've been doing with my buddy, where we do a 2-man game up top, and we have 5 comedians on. That's always fun. And then you can just, I'll every other week, shows will come up and stuff. So it's just kind of, you got to play it by ear. But that being said,
Well, Nate, man, thank you for being on our show. Best of luck to you, brother. We'll be linking up very soon. And yeah, thanks again. Good luck to you.
Man.